Hi, it's Ian Pettigrew here, and I want to talk to you about an event that we're running at the CIPD annual conference. It's a breakfast fringe event on the Thursday morning, on the second day at 8 o'clock, and it's all about how HR can contribute to abolishing modern slavery. So, apologies if this turns into a bit of a rant, because it's something that I care really passionately about. A few weeks ago, I took a team of HR professionals, 15 of us. We're in Ethiopia with something called Connecting HR Africa, and we worked alongside the staff of Hope for Justice, and we were working with children that were formerly homeless, that had been trafficked, that had been abused, that had been in domestic servitude as well. So it's kind of really raw for me, just really recently to have been alongside children who are victims of modern slavery and trafficking. We believe, it's really difficult to put a figure on it, but we believe that there are about 40 million people trapped in some form of modern slavery, whether that be forced labour, whether that be domestic servitude, whether it be sexual exploitation, or whether it be enforced marriage. 40 million people. So when people say to me things like, oh, when we used to have slavery, well, we have more people trapped in slavery than ever before, than ever in history. 40 million people, we think. And it's a massive organised criminal business, where it's believed that criminal gangs are making around about $150 billion a year from this as well. So it's become big business. 40 million people, we reckon about 25% of those are children. So we're talking about possibly 10 million children trapped in slavery as well. So the children that me and the Connecting HR Africa team got to see is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, if you think this is a problem that's sort of happening we were in Ethiopia, but we've taken the team to Uganda before. If you think this is a problem that happens far away, you are wrong. And hopefully along with the video, I'll share a link to a news story. But there was a massive case of modern slavery in the West Midlands just a few months ago, where, let me just make sure I've got the figures right, we think there were 400 people that were being exploited in modern slavery, and 90 of those testified in court, but there were lots of others that didn't. So 400 people trapped in modern slavery in the West Midlands. They were being exploited, they were being taken to do legitimate work, but the money was being taken from them, was being stolen from them, and they were being paid things like 50 pence a day, or occasionally given like a chicken or some coffee or something like that. And that took place between 2012 and 2017, and the case just came to court a few months ago. So that's the West Midlands. So if you think this is a problem that happens overseas or far away, definitely doesn't. And if you read the news report about what happened in the West Midlands, you'll see that people were being kept in absolutely squalid conditions, absolutely squalid. There were photos of a toilet that was so badly damaged and leaking that they'd wrapped a duvet around it to sort of try and stop the leak, but you can imagine what that was like. And there were people, just within recent years in the West Midlands having to wash in a canal because they had no running water in the house. And I don't need to say this. This should not happen. This should not be happening. It should not be happening in Africa. It should not be happening in the UK. It should not be happening anywhere. And the people that were being exploited in the UK, they were working on farms, they were working in rubbish recycling centres, in poultry factories. But we've got to be careful, because quite often we'll assume there's certain industries. People will often talk about car washers and nail bars. But modern slavery and trafficking can be happening right under our noses. And it can happen, it's kind of hidden in plain sight. So be careful about not just assuming that it's certain kind of industries that we've heard about before. Now, there are things that should happen to prevent this. Modern Slavery Act. All companies with a turnover of over 36 million have to publish a statement for the Modern Slavery Act, and it has to go on their website and be public, and it's about making every effort. So if you have a turnover over 36 million, perhaps you want to come along to this event to make sure that you're doing everything you can to actually comply with that statement. One research study I read said that even for people that had signed up to the Modern Slavery Act and had a statement, over 70% of organisations still expected that they had modern slavery in their supply chain somewhere. Over 70%, and that should not happen. But even if your organisation hasn't got a turnover that size, I think there's many, many reasons why as HR professionals we should be interested in this and we should be coming into the event. So the event is something that Rachel Burnham from CIPD Manchester and myself have organised, and we've got Susan Bannister from the Slave Free Alliance, part of Hope for Justice, speaking and running sessions. And it's all about practically, what can you do about this? What can we do about this? Sorry, I am getting so ranty that there's just... from a HR professional perspective, we should care about this. And part of my experience, and again I might sound really ranty and critical, part of my experience that within HR, many people are ignorant of modern slavery and trafficking. And I don't say that in a pejorative way, I mean it with the best will in the world. But we should be really concerned about it. I've got my copy of the new profession map that I've been using as part of my own development. We are a profession that is principles-led. We see beyond the rules to do what's right by following 3 key principles. Work matters, people matter, and professionalism matters. We're outcomes driven. We want to make a positive difference on every level, personal, professional, and social. At the core knowledge includes people practice and business acumen. And 2 of the core behaviours, valuing people and ethical practice as well. Modern slavery and trafficking, like I said, it is a huge, huge problem. It's affecting many people all across the world. It's destroying lives. I've talked about having seen it, the consequences with my own eyes in both Uganda and Ethiopia, and I've talked about what's happened recently in the West Midlands, and no doubt there will be cases of modern slavery happening in plain sight around you now. So this event, Thursday 7th of November, it's the breakfast camp, so it'll be for the 2nd day of the CIPD annual conference begins, and we'll make sure we tweet a link to the Eventbrite. If you are a HR professional, if you're going to be at CIPD annual conference, please do come along. If you're not a HR professional, but some of your team are going to be there, please do hassle them to come along as well, because, like I said, this is so, so important.